I'm Dennis Anderson along with Greg Grell, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
A public forum on the opioid and heroin epidemic is coming up next week at the American Indian Community Housing Organization. We'll talk with local AICHO staff about the epidemic in the Native American community.
Well, 2018 is only 2 months old, but it is shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable campaign years in recent memory.
And we'll have the week's top economic stories from Business North.
So don't go away. Almanac North coming up right now. Well, hello again and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. As you may recognize, Julie has the night off, and here filling in this week is Greg Grell. Welcome back, Greg.
Thank you, Danny. Kind of unpredictable tonight. Our co-host got sick, so here I am.
Here you are. Well, our first topic does impact many members of our community.
It sure does, Danny. Thanks very much. The troubling increase in opioid and heroin addiction will be addressed at a public forum in Duluth next Tuesday. The forum is being hosted by the American Indian Community Housing Organization. Tonight we're going to talk more about the epidemic and how it is impacting the local American Indian community. Joining us right now is Shannon Larson with AICHO's Domestic Violence Shelter, and Marissa Ring is a legal advocate at AICHO, and thank you very much for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Shannon, just to start out, tell us a little bit, how big an issue is this right now in the American Indian community?
It's a very big issue. It's very concerning for most of us. That's why I did reach out to have this forum. I think it's important that, the community members, get a chance to be educated and really kind of see, how big it is. And so.
Marissa, is it more prevalent, do you think, in the Native American community than in the white community?
I'm not sure about the answer to that, but we know that the opioid crisis affects everyone. There's no race, age group, socioeconomic bracket that's immune from it. I think that what we're seeing is when there's a death from an overdose, it has such a broad impact through the community because we're such a tight-knit community that impact may be amplified for us.
So it's not just the person who's addicted, who's affected by it. Entire families, entire communities are affected.
Shannon, what are you hoping to accomplish with the forum next week? Who are you hoping will attend, and what are they going to find out?
I'm hoping to, really reach family members, anybody that this may have touched their lives at some point. Definitely, children who maybe have, parents that are addicted. Everybody is welcome. Really, what we're hoping is to just put some more education and bring this issue to the forefront.
What do either one of you think is causing so many people to turn to drugs? It's not only young people, it's all socioeconomic, all age groups. Why is it? Why are we turning to drugs?
So one of the reasons that deaths from overdoses has gone up so steeply in the past 15 to 20 years is the increase in prescription opioids. People become addicted from that prescription, which they may need. And then when they get cut off, they turn to other sources like heroin or fentanyl that they can get on the street.
So it sounds like the medical community and the prescription drug industry has had a role to play in this.
Absolutely.
Overprescribing.
Overprescribing, and not, I guess, not really cutting the supply off in a, in a timely.
And there's a problem too of not having good alternatives. It's difficult to treat chronic pain. So it's certainly not anything villainous that's going on. It's just a lack of good options. But from our perspective also, because we work at a domestic violence shelter and we're working with people who have not just immediate trauma, but also trauma in their past, that's certainly a source of addiction.
Now, Shannon, you're working with the Duluth Police Department. They're making the presentation on Tuesday, and I know you've been working with them for a while. Talk a little bit about what they'll be telling folks who show up, and what kind of information will be available there?
Well, Jeff Kazel, he did come and do a presentation for us a few months back, and he was telling us, the types of things that the heroin on the streets now is being mixed with fentanyl, and so it's at a dangerous potency, and so people, I don't think even the addicts know exactly what they're getting. So he's going to definitely put that information out. There will be medical professionals, mental health professionals will be speaking. Obviously, many resources will be available there. We'll have some tabling. There are some people I think coming from ClearPath. I'm not entirely sure on that. So I think he does do some of the legal, maybe the punishment aspect of it if you were to get caught with an opioid. And
But it doesn't seem, to me at least, that arresting drug users works. Why do we keep doing that?
I think they're trying to change that. Really, they have a drug court.
Do we not really know what to do?
I think that was true in the past, but I think things are, they're changing. I am part of the ORS work group, and so that we're doing fantastic things, getting the word out. But the drug court has really been helpful. It follows them, step by step.
How does that work? That's very interesting.
I don't know too much about drug court.
Yeah, that's hopefully something that we'll learn more about. As far as why we punish addiction, I don't have a good answer to that, but I know that in my work within the local county jail and work release program, a lot of people that I work with there are waiting for treatment. So sometimes it becomes almost a holding place while people are waiting for a bed to open up.
It doesn't stop addiction, though, does it? Arresting doesn't stop addiction.
No, in fact, it can causes more problems in people's lives if they're away from their family, if they're not providing for their family, then it's just going to spiral. And having that record also makes it harder to turn your life around.
Marissa, we're hearing more and more about this problem in the mainstream media. I mean, opioid and heroin addiction is getting talked about a lot. Is it getting noticed more and more in the local Native American community as well? Is this becoming an issue that people are talking about?
I think so. We've seen a community response. There's a recently formed group called Natives Against Heroin that's been doing a lot of activism against it. What do you think, Shannon?
I agree. Definitely, we do have a speaker coming actually from Natives Against Heroin, and he'll be able to shed some better light on that too. But it is important, I think, to, especially in the Native community, as she said earlier, it's a tight-knit community, and pretty much everybody knows somebody, their lives have been touched by by the opioid crisis. So, it's something, we want to keep the cultural aspect of it a part of this forum also. So, in the Native culture, family is very important, and it's extended family. So, that it's important that everybody is involved.
Do either of you know this? Are opioid treatments costly? Is it expensive to go someplace to be treated for opioid addiction?
That's a good question, and I really don't know the answer to that. Do you know about that, Shannon, how that works?
I don't know cost-wise what it does cost. I do know that a lot of times they do maintenance programs, which really end up they are costly because some of these people are on those maintenance programs for years at a time. So
are most treatments in-house or not in-house?
I would, and it's just maybe my opinion, or, from the women that I've talked to and people that I've dealt with that I know this has touched their lives, in-house usually does work best, and then maybe they might start a maintenance program afterwards.
Yeah.
So.
For folks who are watching tonight that might not be familiar with AICHO, tell us a little bit about some of the services you provide in the community.
There's so many.
Pick your favorites.
There's a lot.
Well, the housing piece is the core of it. So we started 25 years ago, primarily focused around emergency shelter, and we still run an emergency shelter today, and then eventually developing more and more housing. We now have, I think, 49 units of housing.
We do.
And we also provide support services for people who are staying in other housing that's not owned or run by us. But they may be transitioning out of long-term homelessness and need additional resources. And so we provide that, a connection, a person to be basically a case manager for them. And then in addition to the the shelter. I do legal advocacy there, and I do some outreach at, as I mentioned, at the jail and at Bethel Work Release.
We have a children's program. Also, we have a cultural resiliency program. We do have a rooftop. There's also a garden and solar panels. Also, I mean, AICHO is expanding every day. There's so much going on. We work with the hardest to house, so it's important that we do case management with them. And they follow, we have a Giway mobile team that works. They work on a harm reduction model, which most of their participants are actively using, so they kind of meet them where they're at. We have, our arts and cultural center also, and we have many events going on. And we, as I said, we try to keep the cultural aspect, at the forefront of pretty much everything that we do at AICHO.
And it sounds like you're really battling the opioid addiction and other drug addictions for the benefit of people. Can you talk to us a little bit about the cost of human life in drug addiction?
Are you interested? I guess I just want to clarify. Are you asking about the numbers that
Well,
we're
not
seeing?
necessarily the numbers, but
Okay.
what it does to families and to one's own self. Once you are addicted.
It destroys. It rips apart. It takes away dignity, self-worth, confidence. Physical health. I mean, the costs are enormous.
Plus, there's an economic cost, isn't there?
Absolutely.
I mean,
And a lot of times that's how they end up coming to us, at the domestic violence shelter. The reality is that domestic violence and addiction go hand in hand. They really do. And so, we try to get them as many resources for mental health and, of course, treatment. We do partner with some great people. White Earth Mental Health has really been, we work hand in hand with them. They have licensed therapists, they have an arms worker who teaches, healthy coping skills to people who are living independently. And so, there's...
One more time, you have an event coming up on Tuesday. When, where, who's invited?
It's at the Paulus Center, Dr. Robert Paulus Cultural Center. That's 212 West 2nd Street at 5:30?
It starts at 5.
5 o'clock on Tuesday. And everyone's welcome.
The community is welcome. All right, it's going to be a great event. I was going to mention that, AICHO is making a lot more news these days. You guys are raising your profile, and I know you're doing a lot of great work. So thank you very much for coming in tonight and sharing your story with us.
Thanks for
so
having us.
Thank you very, very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
We have all this talent and we're going to squeeze it into a couple of hours of entertainment on the big stage and have it be a celebration of this space and all the effort that went into it turning out as beautiful as it has, and looking forward about all the great memories that will come now that it's once again available to the community.
If you are someone who enjoys political campaigning, 2018 may go down as the year that just keeps on giving. From the surprise announcement that Minnesota Congressman Rick Nolan is not running for re-election, to Senator Al Franken's resignation, there's no shortage of intrigue this year. Now you add in the race for governor and Minnesota state legislative elections, and it's going to be a busy, busy year. Joining us with her take on the election year is Cynthia Rugeley, assistant professor in UMD's Political Science Department. Cindy, welcome. Of
Thank
course,
you.
the big news this week is the reaction to the tragic school shooting down in Florida. Do you think locally gun control or some change in gun buying habits is going to be part of the election?
It's early, so it's hard to tell what's going to be part of the election at this point. Just about anything could be. It certainly has attracted a lot of attention. Yesterday there was a big demonstration down at the state capitol, so I wouldn't be surprised. Minnesota is one of those states where lots of people like their guns, they're hunters and everything, but it's not one where they think that everybody's got to have 12 bump stocks and a cannon. And so, I wouldn't be surprised to see something happen, but I mean, who knows?
If the momentum keeps going,
Yes.
and a lot of the momentum is being brought on by young people, by students. If the momentum keeps going, then perhaps it might be part of the election picture.
Right, and if certain candidates want to make it part
Sure,
of the election
sure.
picture. And it is tough in a state like Minnesota because you are walking a fine line between people who have a healthy respect for guns and those who want to do something to curb gun violence. It's difficult to go into an area of the state and make people feel bad because they have guns, and so and they shouldn't be made to feel bad, and so you kind of have to be careful about how you approach it.
Now, Rick Nolan surprised everybody, including folks in his own party, when he announced a couple weeks ago he's not running for re-election. It kind of has thrown a monkey wrench, I think, into Democratic planning. They didn't think they had to worry about their candidate in that office. How did you think that shakes things up for Democrats in Minnesota?
Well, all of a sudden we've got another open seat and another very competitive race. I'll tell you about that district, though. It's been demonstrated by Stuart Mills in the last couple of elections. It would have been competitive. It would have been a toss-up had Congressman Nolan stayed in the race. I mean, when you talk about guns, that's an interesting segue because, I mean, he's probably a candidate that had the right approach to it, or an approach that was sellable in the district.
It's
Again,
interesting. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When you mentioned that, because it did look like, Mr. Mills had made good inroads there, but now, things seem to be swinging again because there's some national, it's kind of like the midterm election, right? The incumbent party often has a tough time staying in power.
Yeah, that's true in most midterm elections. There's generally there's swing away from the party in power. I don't know if we've seen that. I mean, polling, and you can take polling for what it's worth, hasn't really shown that there's been that much of a swing away from Trump yet in Minnesota. But again, I mean, take polling for what it's worth.
You're kind of bringing up the very next question I had. Is there a mood change in the country? Are we going to see a shift back to Democrats perhaps winning some offices who lost it last time?
Well, I think you can expect that. I mean, generally in midterm elections, the party that is out of power does very well. I mean, the minute a president is elected, he starts losing support. And, to be honest, I mean, President Trump has been controversial even before he was elected. So again, people are predicting that it's going to be a good year for Democrats. How good a year? That's still up in the air. I mean, you see it where people are saying it's going to be a blue wave. And then you start seeing polls, generic polls of who do you prefer, start going up and down. And so, there's a lot of things going on. House of Representatives, for example, gerrymandering plays into it. So there's a whole lot in play, but I think you can expect that the Democrats will pick up seats in the House of Representatives. A lot of people think that they could recapture it. That would require winning 20-something seats. The Senate's a little different. That's a tougher road to hoe for Democrats just because a lot of the states that they have senators up this year are also states where President Trump did very well.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, she's up for re-election this year. Is she unbeatable?
Yes. Well, yeah, I would say so. I mean, unless something happens just unexpected. I think that Senator Klobuchar probably, if I was a Democrat running in this state, she's certainly the person I would emulate. I mean, she is a very strong candidate. I'd be surprised as of yet, I haven't even heard that she's gotten an opponent.
Right. It's interesting this year, when we have these open seats and a lot of new names coming out, but there's going to be so much going on. How does a new candidate make themselves known?
This is one of these years that I think it might be a good year for new candidates, to tell you the truth. I mean, people are looking for something different. I think a lot of it deals with probably some of the polarization in Congress and the fact that a lot of people that have been there for a while have been there for a long while. And it might be a good year for somebody different. you got to have some kind of name. But I mean, I think it could be a good year for a new candidate.
In the Minnesota governor's race, a lot of names are already out there.
Right.
I'm scratching my head to try to figure out who they are. I'm going to throw some names out. Maybe you might know them. Tim Walz.
Yeah, know him.
Okay. Rebecca Otto.
Yep.
I know
Auditor.
Rebecca. Aaron Murphy, Tina Liebling, and Captain Jack Sparrow.
You made that one up.
I saw.
On the DFL side.
No, I know
Captain
those
Jack.
names because I think Captain Jack has also run as a Republican and an independent
Okay.
before,
Okay.
but I might be wrong.
All right.
But-
And of course, there's a whole slew of Republicans
Yes,
trying to get
there
the
is.
nomination. So
Yeah, and I mean, former Governor Palenti might be the front runner should he get in, but I understand that Johnson, he's doing very well too.
yeah.
So
Then you have
I'm
the
not-
Independence Party, the Green Party, and the Independent Party.
Is there a red or a?
They're all over the place.
We've got all kind of color, last little rainbow going on, and so it's, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them. It's fascinating this year. I mean, we've got two senators running because of Senator Franken's resignation. Of the 8 congressional seats, 4 are considered toss-ups. 2 of those are open seats, and so it's a fascinating
It's not
year.
unusual, Professor, in this state to split party. In other words, we might
Split
have
your
a
ticket.
Republican governor and Democratic lawmakers.
Right.
Could that happen this year? Is a time ripe for another Republican governor?
It's going to be a competitive race. I mean, I don't even think the ticket's set yet, but yes, it could happen. It could happen, and you're right about Minnesota. Minnesota splits its ticket.
We do.
I mean, you look at District 8 last time.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a perfect. I think that Nolan. I mean, he outperformed Hillary Clinton by double digits. I think he also outperformed Obama when they ran. You look at it the time before. I mean, people voted for Al Franken and then turned around and voted for Stuart Mills. And so, I mean, it's it's an interesting in that people are willing to do that. And yes, I mean, a Republican could win. It depends on candidates. It really does. I mean, I think if you were to announce front runners right now, it'd be Representative Wentz on the Democratic side, and you know, probably if former Governor Palenti got in it, he'd go in as the front runner. But you know, I'm sure that he still. I mean, anybody that served in office a while has enemies.
Right. But the name recognition is important as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
As you look at the race from more of a macro view, what issues do you think voters are looking at this year? What are they going to be voting about? Like, what are the issues that candidates should be paying attention to?
Jobs are always an important issue. In this district, of course, is the environment versus the mining debate. It doesn't seem like they can reach any kind of middle ground on that. In the state, again, I think taxes will be part of it. Roads, providing infrastructure to areas of greater Minnesota, I think will be a big issue. You know, schools always are an issue. I hope our higher education is, and that people start focusing on that, but that's personal and not necessarily that anything I see coming.
Former television news anchor Michelle Lee has thrown her hat into the ring, hoping to win at least the nomination to run for Congress. Do journalists make good political candidates?
Some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, she's well known in the area and she's well respected, so I think she would be a good candidate. You know, I think she comes with a natural constituency. On the other hand, I mean, Lee Pfeiffer's been in the race for a while on the Democratic ticket. There's a North Branch mayor she's run campaigns before. Joe Ravidovich has had campaigns before and has supports out in the rural areas. I mean, there's some benefits to having run a race before in that, you know, you do have a built-in organization. Generally, the type, what you call amateur candidates like Michelle Lee who run, are those with some form of name recognition, some form of celebrity, and they often enter a race the same way that a more experienced
But the
candidate
reality is
would.
it takes more than name recognition.
It does. It takes issues and it takes the ability to connect with people in a district.
Now, we only have about 30 seconds left, so I'm going to throw you a question. Hopefully you can answer it in 30 seconds. But, you know, when Nolan decided not to run, that leaves the Democrats with a whole bunch of money to have to raise for a new candidate, because wasn't that one of the most expensive races last time?
Right, and it was, but a lot of the money came from national groups, from the national parties, and I think that'll be there again. It's a great year for political junkies, but if you're not, you need to leave the state about 2 weeks before the election.
Well, thank
because
you.
your TV's going to explode.
Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Cindy Rugeley, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for being
I
with us
enjoyed it.
tonight. Thank you.
Great. time now for the business news from the editors at Business North. Superior Choice Credit Union and Dairyland State Bank announced plans to become a single institution. When the deal closes later this year, the two businesses will legally become one entity that operates under the Superior Choice Credit Union name and charter. Existing employees of the financial institutions will be retained. SCCU President and CEO Gary Elliott will lead the group. Dairyland State Bank offices in Wisconsin will be converted to Superior Choice Credit Union branches. All told, the firm will have 11 offices in Wisconsin and Minnesota.
Well, the U.S. Department of Commerce has found that a high level of steel imports threaten to impair national security. Its study found the global excess capacity is 700 million tons, almost 7 times the annual total of U.S. steel consumption. China was the largest source of excess steel. Now, late last week, department officials advised President Trump to impose strong tariffs, which have been sought by domestic mining and steel companies. If approved by the White House, the tariffs and quotas would be in addition to any duties already in place.
Duluth-based Cirrus Aircraft announced that new customer aircraft deliveries for the SR series exceeded 350 planes in 2017, a recent high. The past year marks the 4th consecutive year that Cirrus has delivered more than 300 airplanes. The global SR series fleet is approaching 10 million flight hours in more than 60 countries. The company has also ramped up production of its SF-50 Vision jet, with 25 delivered and currently in service around the world. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Now, if you have a comment on our show, call now, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org and visit the WDSE website for our program schedule, updates on our local shows, and upcoming events here at the station. And Greg, great to have you back here in studio tonight. I know you're in the middle of getting ready for WDSE's new documentary called Fires of 1918.
That's right, it's coming up. March 5th will be our first broadcast, and Dennis is being humble. He's the narrator of the show. So.
I am. What a program, though. I mean,
very interesting.
There was a horrible fire, so deadly in terms of 453, I think, were killed.
Directly by the fire, and many others later died.
Exactly.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
All right. For Greg and the crew here at WDSE, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a good night, everybody, and be kind.
Better to cop.